July 26th, 1945. Winston Churchill just defeated Nazi Germany, saved Western civilization, stood alone against Hitler when everyone else wanted to negotiate, personally kept Britain fighting through bombing raids, starvation blockades, and 5 years of total war. And exactly 2 months after VE Day, the British people look at this man and say, "Thanks for saving us from the Nazis. You're fired."
I'm sorry, what?
Landslide defeat. Labour wins 393 seats. Conservatives get 197. Churchill loses so badly that he's at the Potsdam Conference with Truman and Stalin, literally negotiating the future of Europe and mid-conference. He has to fly home because he just got voted out of office.
That's like coaching a team to the Super Bowl, winning and getting fired while the Gatorade is still dripping off your face. How is that possible?
Because the British people are incredibly smart about leadership. They looked at Churchill and said, "You're amazing at war. You're genuinely terrible at everything else. We need someone who can build houses and create the NHS, not someone who makes speeches about fighting them on the beaches."
Did Churchill see this coming?
Not even remotely. He thought he'd win in a landslide. His wife Clementine, who's way sharper than he is about these things, tells him before the results that losing might be a blessing in disguise.
What does he say to that?
At the moment, it seems quite effectively disguised.
Oh, man, that's heartbreaking. He's devastated, but he's still got the quips.
That's Churchill in a nutshell. His entire life is just processing tragedy through wit. He's basically a Victorian-era coping mechanism wrapped in a bow tie.
So what does he do? Does he just go home?
He goes into what he calls his black dog period. That's his term for depression. And Churchill's depression is serious. Not like I'm feeling down, more like I can't get out of bed and everything seems pointless.
How does he cope?
He paints. Clementine suggested painting years ago as therapy, so Churchill goes to Switzerland and stands in front of canvases for hours painting landscapes. Very blue. Lots of water. It's basically visual depression.
That's actually really sad.
It's sad but also beautiful in a way. Churchill can't express emotions verbally. He's too buttoned up, too Victorian, but he can put them on canvas. He's painting what he can't say.
What else does he do?
He starts writing his war memoirs, 6 volumes, 4,500 pages, because if he can't make history anymore, he's going to write it. And he's going to make damn sure history remembers him the way he wants to be remembered. And he gives speeches. Because Churchill without a platform is like a fish without water. March 5th, 1946. Westminster College in Fulton, Missouri. President Truman introduces him. Churchill walks up and delivers the speech that basically invents the entire Cold War.
The Iron Curtain speech.
From Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic, an Iron Curtain has descended across the continent. That one phrase becomes the defining metaphor for the next 45 years.
And people loved it, right? Standing ovation. Churchill saves the day again.
Complete opposite. Americans thought he was trying to start World War III. The Soviets compared him to Hitler. Stalin personally said Churchill was using race theory like the Nazis. Even Clement Attlee, the new British Prime Minister, publicly distanced himself.
So Churchill's right about Stalin, the way he was, right about Hitler, but nobody wants to hear it?
That's Churchill's entire career. He's right about German rearmament in the 30s. Everyone ignores him. Right about Hitler. Everyone calls him a warmonger. Right about Stalin. Everyone says he's stuck in the past, living in his glory days.
At some point, that has to get exhausting.
I think it makes him more stubborn. Like his internal monologue is just fine. You don't believe me now, but in 5 years, you'll all apologize. And he's usually correct.
Okay, so what's his relationship with Stalin like after the war? Because during the war, they're weird allies.
Incredibly complicated. During the war, Churchill needs Stalin to hold the Eastern Front. So he praises Stalin, sends him massive amounts of supplies, coordinates, strategy. There's even this strange mutual respect. Stalin calls Churchill the bravest governmental figure in the world.
Even though Stalin's regime was responsible for murdering millions of people?
Even though Churchill compartmentalizes. Hitler is the immediate existential threat. Stalin is the future problem. Deal with Hitler first, worry about Stalin later. It's pure pragmatism over morality.
And after the war, that changes.
Changes immediately. Churchill watches Poland fall under Soviet control, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, and he's furious because he warned everyone at Yalta, at Potsdam, Stalin is going to take everything unless we stop him, and nobody listened.
Could anyone have stopped Stalin?
This is our first major argument of the episode. Could the West have stopped Soviet expansion, or was Eastern Europe already lost? Here's the debate. In May 1945, Churchill actually proposes Operation Unthinkable. And the name tells you everything. The plan is immediately invade the Soviet Union using British and American troops plus rearm German soldiers, push the Soviets out of Poland and Eastern Europe before they can consolidate.
That's genuinely insane.
Completely insane. The chiefs of staff rejected immediately. The troops are exhausted. The public wants peace. And starting World War III in May 1945 is political suicide. So it never happens.
But Churchill thought it was worth considering?
Churchill saw the future. He knew that if Stalin controlled Eastern Europe in 1945, he'd control it for 50 years. And he was exactly right. Stayed under Soviet control until the Berlin Wall fell in 1989.
So the argument is, was Churchill a paranoid warmonger who wanted endless conflict? Or was he a tragic visionary who saw what was coming and couldn't stop it?
Both. That's the Churchill paradox. He's paranoid and visionary, and you can't have one without the other. His paranoia is what makes his vision work. So Churchill's out of power, late 40s, early 50s, watching Labor build the welfare state. NHS is created, major industries nationalised, big government expansion. And Churchill's watching this thinking, we just fought a war against totalitarianism and now we're implementing it ourselves through socialism.
That's a huge stretch.
Massive stretch, but effective political rhetoric. By 1951, people are tired of rationing, which, by the way, Britain kept longer than Germany, tired of shortages, tired of labour, and they start thinking maybe that old guy who won the war wasn't so bad after all.
So he runs again?
October 1951, he's 76 years old. He shouldn't be running for anything, but this is Winston Churchill. He's not going to sit in his study painting watercolours while younger men run Britain.
Does he actually campaign, or is he just the figurehead?
Mostly figurehead. The real work is done by Anthony Eden and Harold Macmillan, younger conservatives who understand post-war Britain. But Churchill is the symbol, the man who won the war, the bulldog, the voice.
And people vote for the symbol?
Always. Conservatives win. Not a landslide, 321 to 295, but enough. Winston Churchill, age 76, is Prime Minister again.
How does he feel?
Vindicated, triumphant, like, see, I told you they'd want me back. But also, and this is important, completely unprepared for what peacetime governance actually requires.
Because he's a crisis manager, not a policy administrator?
Exactly. During the war, Churchill made big strategic decisions. Where to fight, how to fight. Then he gave speeches. That's his skill set. Now, he's dealing with housing quotas and agricultural subsidies and budget negotiations. He's bored out of his mind.
So he's the wrong person for the job?
Probably, but nobody's going to tell Winston Churchill he's the wrong person for anything, especially not Churchill himself. Let's talk about Churchill's daily routine as Prime Minister at age 76, because this is where concerning becomes, how is this man alive?
Oh no. What's he doing?
He wakes up at 8 a.m. late by political standards, works from bed until 11, just lying there in his pajamas, reading papers, dictating memos. Then he takes a long bath, gets dressed, and has breakfast.
That sounds normal so far.
Breakfast includes champagne.
I'm sorry, champagne? At breakfast? Like with eggs?
With everything. Churchill drinks a bottle of champagne daily, plus multiple whiskies throughout the day, plus wine with lunch, plus wine with dinner, plus brandy after dinner, every single day for decades.
That would kill me in 48 hours.
His doctors have no scientific explanation for how he's still alive. One literally wrote in his notes, I cannot explain this man's continued existence. It's like his body runs on alcohol the way normal bodies run on water.
This is the medieval peasants thing again, except Churchill is doing it in the 1950s while running a nuclear power.
Perfect comparison. After breakfast, champagne breakfast, he works until 1 p.m, then a massive multi-course lunch with wine and brandy, then his famous nap. He sleeps 1 to 2 hours every afternoon, then back to work until 7 or 8, then dinner. More courses, more champagne, more wine, more brandy. Then he works until 2 or 3 a.m.
This 76-year-old man is out working and out drinking college students while governing Britain.
On 4 hours of sleep and a blood alcohol level that would fail any breathalyzer ever invented. Everyone around him is worried. Clementine is worried. His staff is worried. His doctor, Lord Moran, is keeping detailed notes because he knows history is going to ask, how did you let this happen? But nobody can stop Churchill because Churchill is Churchill.
So when does it all catch up to him?
June 23rd, 1953. He's hosting a dinner for the Italian Prime Minister, fancy state dinner, middle of the meal. His left arm goes numb. His face starts drooping. He can barely speak coherently. He's having a massive stroke right there at the dinner table.
Oh no.
And his inner circle makes a decision that would be completely impossible today. They're going to hide it.
Hide a stroke? From who?
From everyone.
What do you mean everyone?
The public, Parliament, foreign governments, even most of the cabinet. They're going to run the British government from Churchill's bedside and pretend nothing happened.
That's not legal. That can't be legal.
It's not illegal because there's no mechanism in 1953 for removing an incapacitated Prime Minister. Churchill leaves office when he chooses to resign or when he loses a vote of confidence. As long as neither of those things happens, he stays Prime Minister. Even if he's partially paralysed and drooling.
This is Weekend at Bernie's, except it's real and it's the British government.
Okay, I need you to explain to me how you hide a Prime Minister's stroke from an entire country, because that seems impossible.
Very carefully and with a lot of lying. First, they move Churchill immediately, get him out of Downing Street, take him to Chartwell, his country house in Kent, away from reporters and cameras.
What's the official story?
He's overtired and needs rest.
That's not a medical diagnosis. That's what you tell your boss when you're too hungover to come to work.
Exactly. But it works because this is 1953. No 24-hour news cycle, no smartphones, no cameras everywhere. If the government says Churchill is resting, the British press reports that Churchill is resting. The press is incredibly deferential to authority back then.
What about Parliament? Don't they notice the Prime Minister is gone?
Summer recess. Parliament isn't in session. Churchill doesn't have to appear in public for weeks. And by the time Parliament returns in October, he's recovered enough to give a speech. Not a great speech, he's slower, using more notes, but good enough to prove he's functioning.
Who's actually running the government during this time?
His private secretary, John Colville, his doctor, Lord Moran, and maybe 4 or 5 other close allies. They coordinate everything. Foreign governments are told Churchill is indisposed. Meetings get cancelled or postponed. Major decisions go through committee instead of through Churchill. It's genuinely a shadow government. Let's talk about the stroke itself, because it's bad. His left side is partially paralysed. His left arm hangs useless. His leg barely works. He can't walk without assistance. His face droops on one side. When he tries to speak, the words come out slurred, garbled. For days, he can't sign his name with his right hand because the motor control is gone.
And they're telling people he's just tired?
That's the official line. Meanwhile, nurses are working around the clock. Doctors are monitoring him constantly. His family is told the truth but sworn to secrecy. And the British government continues functioning like everything is normal.
What about Anthony Eden? He's Foreign Secretary. He's next in line. Why doesn't he take over?
This is where it gets almost comically perfect for the cover-up. Eden just had botched gallbladder surgery, 3 operations that went wrong. He's recovering in Boston. He's in worse shape than Churchill. So the one person who could legitimately step in is unavailable.
That's almost too convenient.
It's the luckiest medical timing in political history. If Eden had been healthy and in London, he probably takes over. But he's not. So Churchill's team gets away with it. Churchill starts recovering after about 3 weeks. It's not complete. He's not the old Churchill, but he can speak more clearly. He can walk with a cane. By August, he's receiving visitors. By September, he's working a few hours a day. By October, he's given that speech at the Conservative Party conference.
Do people notice something's wrong?
They notice he's slower. He's using notes more than usual. His jokes are fewer, but nobody realises he had a stroke. The official story holds, and Churchill survives politically because the truth stays hidden.
How long until the truth comes out?
Not until after his death. Lord Moran publishes his diaries in 1966, a year after Churchill dies. That's when the world learns that the Prime Minister had a massive stroke and governed from his sickbed for months.
And people were okay with that?
By then, Churchill's dead, so it's just history. But historians are furious. Constitutional scholars are furious. The whole thing is revealed as this massive deception that probably shouldn't have happened in a democracy. Now, here's where the story gets even more complicated. While Churchill is recovering from this secret stroke, he's simultaneously trying to arrange a summit meeting with the Soviet Union.
Wait, he's partially paralysed and he's doing diplomacy?
That's Churchill. Stalin died in March 1953, 3 months before Churchill's stroke, and Churchill is convinced this is his moment. The moment to negotiate with Stalin's successors, Malenkov, Khrushchev, eventually just Khrushchev before the Cold War, becomes permanent.
And Eisenhower doesn't want this?
Eisenhower thinks it's a terrible idea. Which brings us to our second major argument. Was Churchill's push for a Soviet summit naive, or was it visionary?
Okay, give me the case for naive.
Eisenhower's argument is this. Stalin's successors are just as bad as Stalin. They're communists, they're totalitarian, they've got nuclear weapons. Negotiating with them makes the West look weak and desperate. We should contain them, not negotiate with them.
And the case for visionary?
Churchill's argument is this. Stalin's death creates a window. His successors are fighting each other for power. They're consolidating internally. They might be willing to make concessions on nuclear weapons, on European borders, whatever, just to stabilize their own position. But that window won't stay open forever. If we wait too long, they'll consolidate and the chance is gone.
So who's right?
We don't know because the summit never happens. Churchill pushes for it from 1953 to 55. Eisenhower says no every single time. The Geneva Conference finally happens in 1955, but by then Churchill's out of power and the moment has passed.
What if the summit had happened? Could it have changed the Cold War?
Maybe. Maybe the arms race slows down. Maybe the Berlin Wall never gets built. Maybe Khrushchev makes genuine concessions. Or maybe Eisenhower's right and nothing changes. We'll never know. Let's talk about Churchill and Eisenhower, because their relationship after the war is one of the saddest parts of this story. During World War II, they're incredibly close. Best friends, Eisenhower trusts Churchill's judgment completely. Churchill sees Eisenhower as a brother in arms, a true partner.
And after?
After it all falls apart, Eisenhower becomes president in 1953. Same year, Churchill becomes prime minister again. And Churchill thinks they're going to pick up exactly where they left off, making big strategic decisions together, coordinating Western policy, being the dynamic duo that won the war.
But Eisenhower doesn't see it that way?
Eisenhower sees Churchill as a colleague from the past, not a current partner. America is the superpower now. Britain is not. Eisenhower doesn't need Churchill's advice on Soviet policy. He doesn't want Churchill arranging summits without American permission. And he definitely doesn't want Churchill treating the special relationship like it's still 1944.
That's brutal. That's like your college best friend becoming your boss and suddenly being all formal and distant.
Perfect analogy. Churchill keeps sending these long emotional letters to Eisenhower, proposals for summits, requests for meetings, personal appeals, and Eisenhower responds politely but firmly, "Thanks, Winston. I've got this."
Is there a moment where Churchill realizes the friendship is over?
1954. Churchill proposes flying to Washington for consultations. He's ready to go, packed his bags, and Eisenhower essentially says, "Please don't come right now. This isn't a good time."
Oh.
Churchill is devastated. He finally understands that the relationship he thought they had doesn't exist anymore. Or maybe it never existed. Maybe Eisenhower was always just being professional and Churchill mistook professionalism for friendship.
So Churchill's second term as Prime Minister is just him trying to relive his first term?
Trying and failing. He's focused on big diplomatic gestures, summits, speeches, grand strategy. Meanwhile, Britain needs someone to fix the housing crisis, modernize the economy, deal with decolonization. Churchill has zero interest in any of that.
So he's objectively the wrong person for this moment in history?
Completely wrong. But he can't admit that. Admitting it means admitting he's not Winston Churchill anymore. Let's talk about Clementine Churchill, because she's been mostly off stage, and that's not fair. Clementine is the person who keeps Winston alive through 57 years of marriage.
57 years? That's longer than most people live.
They marry in 1908. She's 23, beautiful, smart, from a good family. He's 33, already controversial, already difficult. And she spends the next 5.5 decades managing his moods, his depression, his ego, his drinking, his complete inability to take care of himself.
What's she actually like? I feel like we never hear about her.
Smart. Very smart. No nonsense. She doesn't tolerate his nonsense. She's not a doormat. She argues with him, criticizes him, tells him when he's being an idiot. But she also protects him fiercely. When he's depressed, she gets him to paint. When he's drinking too much, she hides bottles. When he's being impossible, she's the only person who can tell him to stop.
And during this second term as Prime Minister, what's her role?
She's watching him decline and she knows he should resign. She tells him privately multiple times, "You're not up to this anymore. You need to step down." He doesn't listen. So she does what she's always done, manages the situation from behind the scenes, makes sure he doesn't completely fall apart, and waits for him to come to the right decision himself. By 1954-55, Churchill is clearly failing. He's 79, 80, multiple small strokes since the big one. His hearing is almost completely gone. People have to literally shout at him during cabinet meetings. His memory's slipping. He repeats stories. He falls asleep mid-conversation. Once he wakes up and asks, "What are we discussing?" And someone says, "The same thing we were discussing before you fell asleep, Prime Minister."
And he's still running the country?
Technically. Anthony Eden is waiting. The Conservative Party is waiting. Clementine is waiting. The entire British government is waiting for Churchill to do the obvious thing.
Which is resign.
But Churchill can't do it. In his mind, he still has crucial work to do. He still wants that summit with the Soviets. He still wants to cement his legacy. And deep down, he probably can't imagine existing without power. Being Prime Minister is who he is. Without it, he's nobody. Early 1955, reality finally breaks through. Even Churchill can see he can't continue. His body is failing. His mind is failing. Continuing would be grotesque. So he tells the cabinet, "I'm stepping down."
How do they react?
With relief. Overwhelming relief. They've been waiting for 2 years. Anthony Eden finally becomes Prime Minister. Churchill attends a farewell dinner at 10 Downing Street. Very small, very quiet. No grand speeches, no drama. Just thank you. Goodbye. Good luck.
And then he just leaves?
April 5th, 1955. Winston Churchill's political career ends with a handshake and a car ride home. He's done.
How does he feel?
Empty, lost, devastated. He's been in politics for over 50 years. He's been Prime Minister twice. He won World War II. He shaped the 20th century. And now he's just an old man with nothing to do.
Sounds like misery. 1955 to 1965. Churchill lives another 10 years after resigning. And those 10 years are genuinely hard to watch because this is the slow, sad decline of someone who was once larger than life.
What does he do? Where does he go?
He goes back to Chartwell mostly, his country house, also his London home on Hyde Park Gate. He's got round-the-clock care nurses, assistants, staff managing everything. Clementine is there, but she's aging too. She's exhausted from 50 plus years of managing Winston.
Can he still paint?
A little. Not as much. His hands shake, his eyesight is failing, but occasionally he'll sit in front of a canvas for an hour and manage a few brushstrokes. It's more about the ritual than the art at this point.
What about writing?
His big writing is done. The war memoirs are published. He's won the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1953. Now he mostly reads or tries to read, but his eyes are going, so even that becomes difficult.
So what does he actually do all day?
Watches television.
Wait, seriously. Winston Churchill is a TV watcher?
Obsessively. He loves it. He watches westerns. He's fascinated by cowboys and gunfights. He watches nature shows. And he watches the news constantly, even though he can't really engage with it anymore.
That's so sad. This man who shaped world events is now just watching them on a screen.
That's the tragedy of aging for anyone, but especially someone like Churchill. His entire identity is about being at the centre of history. Now he's on the periphery watching other people make decisions without him.
Does he stay sharp mentally or does he decline?
It's unpredictable. He'll have a day where he's completely lucid, telling stories, making jokes, remembering details from 60 years ago. Then he'll have a week where he barely recognises his own children. It's cruel.
Who visits him during these years?
His children, Diana, Randolph, Sarah, Mary, grandchildren, old political friends, world leaders who want to pay their respects. De Gaulle visits him. Eisenhower and Churchill never see each other again in person, but Eisenhower sends messages.
What about Kennedy?
Kennedy and Churchill exchange letters, but they never meet. And when Kennedy is assassinated in November 1963, Churchill is reportedly devastated. It's one of the last world events that really affects him emotionally. Churchill keeps his seat in Parliament until 1964. He literally never attends, can't speak, can barely move. But he keeps the seat because being Winston Churchill, Member of Parliament, is the last piece of his identity left.
When does he finally give up the seat?
General election, October 1964. He doesn't run. After 55 years in Parliament, 55, he's finally done. And that's genuinely the end. No more politics, no more public life. Just an old man in a big house waiting.
Waiting for what?
Death. Everyone knows it's coming. And on January 15th, 1965, it finally starts. January 15th, 1965. Churchill has another stroke. This one is massive. Final. He slips into a coma for 9 days. The entire world watches and waits. BBC prepares obituaries. Foreign governments prepare condolence messages. Newspapers pre-write front pages. Everyone knows this is it.
Is he conscious at all?
In and out, mostly out. Clementine sits at his bedside. His children come and go. But Churchill, the Churchill who gave the speeches, who made the impossible decisions, who saved Britain, he's already gone. What's left is just the body holding on.
When does he die?
January 24th, 1965, Sunday morning, 7:30 a.m., 70 years to the day after his father, Lord Randolph Churchill, died.
Wait, the exact same date? 70 years later?
Exact same date. Whether that's coincidence or some weird historical symmetry, it's striking. Churchill spent his whole life trying to live up to his father's legacy. And he dies on the same day his father died, exactly 70 years later.
How does the world react to his death?
Enormous, global. Queen Elizabeth II immediately orders a state funeral, only the second for a commoner in the 20th century. The first was for Gladstone in 1898. And Elizabeth breaks protocol by attending personally, which monarchs almost never do.
Why does she attend? What's the significance?
Because she remembers. Elizabeth was a young woman during World War II. She served in the military. She watched the bombing raids. She knows what Churchill did. And she wants to honour that publicly and personally.
When's the funeral?
January 30th, 1965. 6 days later, St. Paul's Cathedral, 3,000 people inside, representatives from 112 countries, every major world leader. It's massive.
What's the actual ceremony like?
Grand, solemn, very British. The coffin is placed on a gun carriage, the same gun carriage used for Queen Victoria and King George VI. Military bands, full honours. The procession moves through London from Westminster Hall to St. Paul's. And the streets are lined with hundreds of thousands of people just standing there, silent, watching.
How many people watch on TV?
An estimated 350 million people worldwide. It's one of the largest television broadcasts in history up to that point. The whole world stops to watch Winston Churchill's funeral.
What happens after St. Paul's?
The coffin is taken to the Thames. It's placed on a boat, the Haven Gore, which travels upriver. And as the boat passes the dockyards, something incredible happens. The cranes. The dockyard cranes along the Thames. The workers lower them. It's a salute. Nobody ordered it. Nobody planned it. The dock workers just spontaneously decide to dip the cranes as Churchill's coffin passes.
Oh, man. That's beautiful. That's one of the most beautiful gestures I've ever heard.
It's one of the most iconic images of the entire day. These massive industrial cranes slowly lowering in synchronized respect. And it's spontaneous, just working class people honouring the man who they felt represented them during the war.
Even though Churchill's policies didn't always help working class people?
Even though, because to them, Churchill represented British resilience, British pride, the idea that Britain could stand up to anyone. Whether that's true or not doesn't matter. That's what they felt. After the boat journey, the coffin is taken by train to Bladden, tiny village near Blenheim Palace where Churchill was born. He's buried in the family plot. His parents are there, his brother Jack. Eventually, Clementine joins him in 1977.
What's the grave like? Big monument? Statue?
No, just a simple headstone. Very plain. Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill with dates. That's it.
That's surprisingly understated for someone. So theatrical.
That's what he wanted. Churchill requested specifically, no fuss beyond the state funeral, no grand monuments, just bury me with my family in the village churchyard. From palace to village, from the centre of history to a quiet corner of England.
There's something really fitting about that. Born in a coat closet in a palace, buried in a village churchyard. Full circle.
The full circle. And now we have to talk about what it all meant, what Churchill actually represents. And this is where it gets genuinely difficult.
It's a tough nut to crack.
Let's talk about the Bengal famine of 1943, because this comes up constantly in modern discussions of Churchill, and we need to address it honestly.
How bad was it?
Catastrophic. Between 1.5 and 3 million people died. Bengal, which is now Bangladesh and part of Eastern India, experienced a massive famine, combination of crop failures, wartime disruptions, policy failures, and British indifference all combined to create a humanitarian disaster.
And Churchill's government didn't help?
Churchill's government prioritised the war effort over famine relief. Ships were needed for military operations against Japan. Resources were diverted to British and Allied troops. Food exports from India continued even during the famine. And Churchill personally showed complete indifference to Indian suffering.
What did he actually say about it?
His documented private comments are indefensible. He blamed Indians themselves. He made racist remarks about them breeding like rabbits. He questioned why Gandhi hadn't died yet if the famine was so bad. It's horrific.
So, is Churchill directly responsible for millions of deaths?
This is where historians debate intensely. Churchill didn't cause the crop failures. He didn't cause the cyclone that destroyed rice paddies, but his government's policies made the famine worse, and his personal racism made him completely indifferent to preventing or alleviating the suffering.
What's the defence? Is there a defence?
The defence is that Britain was fighting for its survival in 1943. Resources were genuinely limited. Shipping was limited. Churchill had to make impossible choices, send ships to India to prevent famine, or send ships to fight Japan and protect Allied supply lines.
But that's still a choice. He chose the war over Indian lives.
He did, and his racism made that choice easier. A more progressive leader might have found a way to do both. Churchill didn't try very hard.
How do modern Indians view Churchill?
Many view him as a mass murderer and a symbol of British colonial brutality. There are campaigns to remove his statues, to rename institutions named after him, to teach his crimes in schools alongside his victories.
Is that fair?
It's fair from their perspective. From an Indian point of view, Churchill represents colonial oppression, racist contempt, and indifference to their suffering. The fact that he saved Britain from Hitler doesn't change what he did to India.
So different nations. Remember Churchill completely differently?
Completely. British people remember 1940 and the speeches and standing alone. Indian people remember colonialism and famine and racism. Both perspectives are valid based on lived experience. Both are true. Let's talk about Churchill's role in the Cold War, because this is where his influence extends well beyond World War II. The Iron Curtain speech in 1946 creates the conceptual framework for 45 years of Western policy.
How so?
Churchill articulates the idea that the Soviet Union is expansionist and totalitarian, that Eastern Europe is falling under communist control, and that the West needs to actively resist. That becomes the policy of containment, the foundation of American Cold War strategy from Truman through Reagan.
And he was right.
Completely right. Berlin blockade, Korean War, Hungarian Revolution, Prague Spring, Afghanistan, everything Churchill warned about in 1946 happened. The Soviets were expansionist. They did want to spread communism globally. Churchill saw it before almost anyone else.
So, once again, Churchill is correct, but nobody wants to hear it?
That's the pattern. Right about Germany, ignored. Right about Hitler, called a warmonger. Right about Stalin, told he's living in the past. Then history proves him right every single time. But here's the complication. Churchill's anti-Soviet rhetoric in the late 40s also contributes to Cold War tensions. Some historians argue that a more conciliatory approach might have prevented some of the worst Cold War crises.
So was Churchill a cold warrior who made things worse, or a realist who saw the threat clearly?
Both, depending on the year. In the late 40s, he's warning about Soviet expansion that's necessary. In the early 50s, he's pushing for negotiation and summits that's also necessary. He evolves. Or maybe he contains multitudes.
Which Churchill was, right? The hawk or the dove?
Probably both. The West needed to be firm in the late 40s. Churchill was right about that. But they also needed to negotiate in the 50s to prevent nuclear war. Churchill was right about that too. Churchill's 6-volume war memoir shapes how the world understands World War II for 30, 40 years. His version of events becomes the version.
Is his version accurate?
Mostly, but selective. Churchill emphasizes his own foresight and decisions. He's generous to some people, Roosevelt mostly, and less generous to others. He downplays his mistakes. He highlights his successes. It's history written by the winner, literally.
So he's writing his own legacy in real time?
Absolutely, and it works brilliantly. He wins the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1953. His books become bestsellers. His version of history becomes accepted wisdom. Only decades later do historians start questioning and filling in gaps. Here's the big question. Was Churchill a great man who shaped history through force of will, or was he in the right place at the right time?
What do you think?
Both. Churchill had genuine abilities, oratory, strategic vision, courage, stubbornness that looked like heroism in 1940, but he was also incredibly lucky.
Lucky how?
Lucky that Chamberlain failed, so he got the job. Lucky that Hitler attacked instead of negotiating, which would have made Churchill's position impossible. Lucky that America entered the war. Lucky that the Soviets held the Eastern Front. Lucky that he lived long enough to see victory.
So, greatness plus luck?
Greatness plus luck plus timing. Churchill without World War II is just another failed Victorian politician. World War II without Churchill is, I genuinely can't imagine it. Maybe Britain negotiates. Maybe they surrender. Maybe the Nazis win Western Europe. It's unthinkable.
So he was necessary in that moment?
In 1940, yes. Absolutely necessary. No one else in British politics had the courage, the oratory, the sheer bloody-minded refusal to quit that Churchill had. He was the only person who could have kept Britain fighting when every rational calculation said to surrender. So here we are, 2026. What's Churchill's legacy right now?
Contested?
Deeply contested. In Britain, especially among older Britons, he's still revered. National icon. Symbol of British courage. The man who saved the country.
And younger people?
Younger generations are much more critical. They focus on imperialism, racism, the Bengal famine. They ask, why are we celebrating someone with such horrific views? And that's legitimate. That's an important question.
What about globally? Outside Britain?
It varies wildly. In America, still respected. In India, reviled. In former British colonies, seen as a symbol of oppression. In Europe, complicated, saved them from Hitler, but also represented empire and British arrogance. So here's how we should think about Churchill, with nuance, which absolutely nobody wants to do. Conservatives want to worship him uncritically. Progressives want to tear him down completely. And neither approach is historically honest.
What's the honest approach?
Acknowledge both truths. Churchill saved Western civilization from Nazi conquest. That's real. That matters enormously. The world would be unimaginably worse if Hitler had won, but Churchill also held abhorrent racist views, presided over policies that caused mass death in India, and represented an imperial system that oppressed hundreds of millions of people. Both things are true. Both things matter.
Can we celebrate his achievements while condemning his failures?
We should. That's what mature historical thinking looks like. We can say Churchill's refusal to surrender in 1940 was genuinely heroic, and also say his indifference to Indian famine victims was genuinely monstrous. We can hold both thoughts simultaneously. Here's my theory about Churchill. He was a Victorian man living in a modern world. His attitudes about empire, race, Britain's role in the world, they were already outdated by the 1920s and 30s. But those same outdated attitudes gave him the conviction to believe Britain could stand alone in 1940.
So we needed his outdated views to win the war?
In a strange way, yes. A more modern, more progressive leader in 1940 might have looked at the situation rationally and seen that negotiation made more sense than continued fighting. Churchill's stubborn, irrational belief in British greatness, that's what kept Britain in the war.
So sometimes you need the wrong person for the right reason?
Sometimes you need the impossible person for the impossible moment. Churchill was impossible, difficult, stubborn, racist, imperialist, an alcoholic, depressed, all of it. But in 1940, impossible was exactly what Britain needed. Our third major argument of this episode is, how do we assess complicated historical figures? Do we judge them by the standards of their time or by universal moral standards, or some combination?
What's the argument for judging them by their time?
The argument is that Churchill's views on race and empire were typical for someone of his class and generation. Most British aristocrats in the early 1900s believed in white superiority and imperial dominance. Churchill wasn't uniquely bad, he was average for his context.
And the argument against that?
The argument against is that there were anti-imperialists and anti-racists in Churchill's time. people who saw that colonialism was wrong. Churchill had access to those perspectives and rejected them. So he made a choice. And we can judge him for that choice.
Which argument is, right?
Both have merit. Understanding historical context helps us understand why Churchill thought the way he did. But understanding context doesn't mean excusing the harm those beliefs caused. Winston Churchill, born in a coat closet at a fancy party, failed at everything: school, the military academy, early politics, finally succeeded at the most important thing in human history, saved Britain, got fired for it, came back, had a secret stroke, ruled from a sickbed, tried to prevent World War III, failed, resigned, declined, died, and left behind the most complicated legacy of the 20th century.
And the legacy is?
The legacy is that he was right when it mattered most. He stood alone when everyone else wanted to quit. He gave speeches that kept people fighting when surrender was the rational choice. He made decisions that shaped the world we live in now. And he was also a flawed, difficult, racist, imperialist man who caused immense suffering. Both things are true. Both things will always be true.
Can history hold both those truths?
History has to, because that's reality. Churchill saved civilization and harmed millions. He was a hero and a villain. He was right and wrong. He was great and terrible. And we don't get to pick and choose. We have to understand all of it.
I need a drink, preferably champagne, at breakfast.
Churchill would absolutely approve.
This has been the Mike and Mark History Experience. Thanks for listening, and tell a friend.